Hello everyone, my name is Miranda Littlejohn. Today I'm going to be doing a SWOT analysis of the South Carolina Code of Laws, Domestic Violence. First, I'm going to be talking about the strengths of the laws. The first thing that I noticed was that they're detailed terms. They're very detailed definitions of the terms that are provided throughout the Code of Laws, which help the reader to understand and discern what each law entails and how their specific situation may fall under the law. Secondly, physical harm is not required. So according to Section 162520A2, it does not require physical injury to be charged with domestic violence. The offer or attempt to cause injury is sufficient to sustain conviction. I feel like this is really good considering a lot of times abuse can start with just verbal abuse. The victim, knowing this law, can understand that they can call law enforcement and that abuser can be convicted by just threatening violence on the person. Third, mental health treatment programs. According to Section 162520G, treatment programs for an abuser will be offered. Also, the offender has to pay a reasonable fee for participation, but if they do not have the funds, then they won't be denied. Minors. So, according to Section 162520CA, if the abuse is committed in the presence of a minor, the offense will be elevated from third degree to second degree. I think this is great, considering minors in the presence of domestic abuse. We talked about earlier in the semester how domestic violence can truly affect a minor. It has detrimental effects, long-lasting effects on their health. For instance, they may grow up, have anxiety, depression, health issues such as self-esteem issues, which could lead to obesity, which could lead to diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And then also, a lot of times when minors are in the presence of domestic abuse or violence, they tend to grow up and exert the same behavior on their partners or their friends or people that they come in contact with as well. Jail time. Any offense, whether convicted of third degree or high and aggravated nature, which is the highest, can result in jail time. So I think the first offense, the lowest, is like 0 to 90 days. And then it goes up from there. To me, this is good because it lets the abusers know. It sets an example for the public to see that abuse, domestic violence in any way is not tolerated. And then also firearms. So in certain convictions, the gun rights of the offender will be taken away, which I think is really good because if anyone is convicted of any type of abuse or domestic violence per se, I feel that they should lose their rights to firearms, period. This can potentially cut down on killing, deaths. The next thing I'm going to talk about are the weaknesses of the laws. So first, the web page layout. The web page layout to me was very lengthy and detailed. To me, it kind of made it kind of difficult to truly navigate and understand. it took me a while to kind of read through each section to truly understand what I was reading. Um, Common knowledge would be better also, like common terms for someone who's not been to law school or doesn't quite understand the law. Um, that would be much better. Secondly, the LGBTQ community. So the LGBTQ community is not addressed at all. In section 1625.10 3D, the household member is defined as male and female. I feel like this should be updated considering this community is more prevalent and continually growing, and these members fall victim to domestic violence at equal or even higher rates. Third, mandatory arrests. So there is no mandatory arrest policy for domestic violence. I think this could change. I think there should be mandatory arrest if domestic violence is proven. Um, to me, that would just make a public display of the consequences for the abuser and potentially decrease cases of domestic violence. Gun rights. So personally, I believe all gun rights of a convicted abuser should be taken away. Stricter laws should be set in place, and the background checks for purchasing guns should be done. Um, I would think that if an abuser is out on bond or once released from jail time, the risk for death could be increased as they could go and purchase guns and carry out their abuse in that way. And lastly, domestic violence criteria. So, as I was doing some research, I noticed that a lot of states consider stalking and harassment as criteria for domestic violence, but South Carolina law does not. I think this would be great to be added in um, because stalking and harassment a lot of times does lead to abuse, um, injury, or death. The next, the next slide I'm going to talk about are opportunities. So the opportunities that I see, um, the first one are updates. I feel like that this code of law should be assessed frequently and updated where necessary. For instance, as I talked about, including the LGBTQ community. The next is the common language talked about earlier. Um, so breaking down the terms and the laws into common language that everyone can understand um, and be able to comprehend. So as I was saying, reading through, some of it kind of got a little, um, I guess, deep, and I had to do further research. Even looking into some lawyers' blogs or web pages to help kind of um, bring all of the information together. So I felt like the other web pages and blogs that I looked at was a little bit easier to read than these. And then third, healthcare resources. So it's good that the Code of Laws that can be easily accessed and used as a resource in healthcare. Um, I personally did not know that I could go on this website and find these laws, and I think it's great that I have actually been exposed and know where to access them. I think it would be great to include this in education in hospitals. Healthcare leaders can utilize it for providing education to physicians and nurses because we all encounter victims of domestic violence in any unit of the hospital. So, becoming familiar with the law can help to provide the correct interventions for the victims. Next, I'm going to talk about the threats. So, the threats that I saw, the first, law enforcement's right to accuse. So, in section 162570D, it says that police officers are given the right to determine who is the primary abuser and who is the victim if two parties are involved. this can have a negative ending. The victim could potentially be wrongly accused and arrested. Um, Unfortunately, I have seen a case where this actually happened. Um, I know someone who was being abused over and over, physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally. Um, the abuse had been going on for years. Um, the victim finally got tired of it and decided to retaliate. One day, when a fight broke out, she fought back, and the abuser actually ended up calling the law. Um, and she was arrested. After all of these years of abuse, she was the one that went to jail and had her name um, out there for everyone to think that she was the one causing the abuse. Um, so I think that that is definitely a threat. Um, it should be changed. Honestly, I feel like many abusers have a way to charm others and can easily convince others that they are the victims. Secondly, there are gray areas. Some laws are very specific and some are grayer in others, and I feel like this could prevent some victims from feeling confident enough to reach out to law enforcement for protection, not knowing what may be covered and what is considered abuse and what is considered um, disobeying the law, and how they could get help from that. Um, and then lastly, the LGBT community. Again, I feel like the members of this community could read over these laws and feel that this law does not apply to them. Um, the abuser may think that they won't be arrested, that nothing will happen to them, um, and the victim could be less likely to reach out for help. So I definitely feel like these are threats and things that could change about the law. Overall, I've really enjoyed doing this project and looking through these laws and doing this analysis, and I hope that we all can learn from it, and that we all can take these um, resources and the education that we have gathered and share it with our coworkers, our friends, our family. We know where the resources are. We know some of what the law entails, and hopefully this can help change and help um, victims of domestic violence, domestic abuse, to help them to seek out the help that they need. Thank you.